There are moments in the ancient traditions of Israel when the simplest actions carry the deepest meanings. And what may seem like an ordinary object in your hand becomes a doorway into something far greater than the material world itself. One of those moments is hidden within a practice so discreet, so symbolic, that few truly understand its depth. Placing a coin in salt during a sacred time of renewal. And if this message has reached you today, then perhaps something within your spirit is already seeking alignment, seeking restoration, seeking a deeper understanding of abundance that goes beyond what the eyes can see. Before we continue, take a brief moment to support this space of wisdom. Subscribe now to the channel Jewish Wisdom, because every message shared here is part of a living tradition that continues to illuminate lives across generations. Your presence here sustains this work. Now, pause for a second and write this in the comments. Not as a ritual of superstition, but as a declaration of inner alignment. I receive with clarity what is already prepared for me. There is something powerful that happens when intention is spoken, even silently. In Hebrew, understanding, words are not merely sounds, they are vessels. In the book of Genesis, creation itself begins not with action, but with speech. And God said, and it was so. This is not poetry. It is a principle. Reality responds to intention, expressed with awareness. The idea of placing a coin in salt, especially in a moment such as April, a time that often aligns with cycles of renewal, with spring in the ancient calendar, with beginnings and transitions, touches something much older than modern interpretations. It echoes a deeper pattern found within Jewish consciousness, that physical actions, when infused with intention, can serve as anchors for spiritual awareness. But here is where many misunderstand. In authentic Jewish wisdom, no object holds power by itself. Not salt, not a coin, not even sacred items. What gives meaning, what opens the channel is always the kavanah, the intention of the heart. Without intention, the action is empty. With intention, even the smallest act becomes elevated. Salt, in the Hebrew tradition, is not random. It is one of the oldest symbols of covenant. In the Torah, offerings were required to be seasoned with salt. It was called a covenant of salt, something eternal, unbreakable, preserving what would otherwise decay. Salt does not corrupt, it preserves, it stabilizes, it protects. And so, when salt appears in a symbolic action, it often points to something deeper, the desire to preserve what is good, to protect what has been given, to maintain alignment with something eternal. The coin, on the other hand, represents value, not just financial value, but the concept of exchange, of flow, of energy moving from one place to another. In Hebrew thought, wealth is not simply possession, it is movement. It is the ability to receive and to give, to circulate blessing. So when these two elements are brought together, salt and coinage is not about a trick or a formula. It is about embodying a principle, the desire to preserve and align the flow of value in one's life with a higher awareness. But here is the truth that must be understood clearly. The action itself does nothing if the heart is disconnected. Jewish tradition repeatedly warns against empty rituals. The prophets spoke strongly against those who performed actions without intention, without awareness, without inner alignment. Because the external, without the internal, becomes hollow. This is why, if someone places a coin in salt, believing it will magically bring wealth, they have already missed the essence. But if someone pauses, breathes, reflects, and consciously aligns their intention, recognizing that everything comes from the divine, that abundance is not owned but entrusted, that what flows into their life must be honored and directed with integrity, then even a simple gesture can become a moment of transformation. April, in many interpretations, symbolizes transition. It is a threshold between what was and what begins to emerge. In ancient cycles, this period often corresponded with renewal, with preparation, with stepping into a new phase of life. And so, the deeper question is not whether placing a coin in salt works. The real question is, what are you aligning within yourself when you do it? Are you acting from fear, trying to control outcomes, or are you acting from awareness, recognizing that you are already part of a greater flow? There is a subtle but profound difference. In Jewish wisdom, prosperity is never disconnected from responsibility. To receive is also to become a vessel. To become a vessel is to refine oneself. And to refine oneself is to become aligned with something higher than personal desire. That is why the sages taught that blessing does not rest where there is chaos, dishonesty, or disconnection. It rests where there is order, integrity, and intention. So if you ever engage in a symbolic act like this, understand what truly matters. Not the object, not the gesture, but the awareness behind it. Because the ancient secret is not hidden in salt, nor in the coin. It is hidden in the consciousness you bring to the moment. What at first appears as a simple gesture begins to unfold into something far more ancient when we return to the original sources. When we step back into the world where these symbols were first given meaning. Because nothing in the Hebrew tradition emerges by accident. Every element, salt, coin, timing, intention, echoes something that was already written, already lived, already transmitted through generations, who understood that the visible world is only a reflection of a deeper order. In the Torah, in the book of Leviticus, there is a command that often passes unnoticed by the casual reader. Every offering brought before God was to be seasoned with salt. Not some offerings, not occasionally, but every single one. With all your offerings you shall offer salt. This was not about taste. It was not about preservation alone. It was about covenant. Salt was called Brit Milexta, covenant of Sultan, eternal bond that does not decay, does not disappear, does not break with time. Think about what that means. In a world where everything changes, where everything fades, where even the strongest structures eventually fall, salt was chosen as a symbol of something that endures, something stable, something incorruptible. The sages understood this deeply. They taught that salt represents the hidden dimension of reality, the aspect that remains even when everything else is stripped away. Now, when we look at the idea of placing something valuable, like a coin, into salt, we begin to see the symbolic language more clearly. It is not about creating wealth from nothing. It is about recognizing that all value must be connected to something that endures. Wealth without foundation disappears. Gain without alignment collapses. But when value is placed within a covenant, within awareness, within intention, it becomes sustained. The Psalms echo this understanding in a different way. In Psalm 112, it is written that the righteous person's wealth and riches are in their house. But more importantly, their righteousness endures forever. Notice the order. Wealth is mentioned, but it is not the foundation. The foundation is righteousness, alignment with what is just, what is true, what is in harmony with the divine order. This is where many modern interpretations go wrong. They try to extract the result without embracing the principle. But the Hebrew tradition never separates the two. In rabbinic teachings, especially within the Talmud, there is a recurring idea that blessing rests in what is hidden from the eye. Not in what is displayed, not in what is controlled, but in what is quietly aligned. There is even a teaching that warns against counting wealth directly, because blessing does not dwell in that which is exposed to constant measurement. Instead, it grows in humility, in discretion, in awareness. And this connects directly to the symbolic act we are reflecting on. Because placing a coin in salt is not a display. It is not something done for others to see. It is intimate, quiet, almost invisible. And in that sense, it reflects a deeper truth. That true alignment with abundance begins in the unseen places of the heart. But again, it must be said, clearly, and without confusion. In Jewish wisdom, no object creates blessing on its own. Not salt, not coins, not any physical action. The power is never in the object. It is in the intention that accompanies it. The sages called this kavanah-focused, conscious direction of the heart. Without kavanah, even prayer becomes empty. With kavanah, even silence becomes powerful. So when someone engages in a symbolic act like this, the question is not, what will this give me? But rather, what am I aligning myself with in this moment? Are you recognizing the source of everything you receive? Are you acknowledging that what flows into your life is not random, but entrusted? Are you preparing yourself to handle what you asked for with integrity? Because in the Hebrew worldview, abundance is not merely given, it is sustained through alignment. There is also something deeply significant about timing. The idea of doing this in a period like April, which often corresponds to cycles of renewal, echoes the ancient rhythm of the Hebrew calendar, particularly the month of Nisan. Nisan is not just another month. It is called the beginning of months. It is associated with liberation, with transition, with stepping out of limitation into expansion. It is the time when the Israelites left Egypt not only physically, but internally. They moved from a state of constriction into a state of possibility. And so, any symbolic act done during a time of renewal carries an additional layer of meaning. It becomes less about the act itself, and more about what you are choosing to release, and what you are choosing to step into. The Zohar, one of the foundational texts of Jewish mysticism, speaks about the idea that the physical world is a garment for spiritual realities. What we touch, what we see, what we do, these are outer expressions of inner processes. And when a person becomes aware of this, their actions change. They are no longer acting mechanically, they are acting consciously. This is the secret. Not hidden in complexity, but hidden in awareness. And this is why it is so important to approach these ideas with clarity. Because without understanding, symbols can be misused. They can become superstitions instead of gateways to awareness. But when understood correctly, they become reminders, anchors, moments of alignment. Tell me, do you appreciate content like this, where ancient wisdom is brought into clarity in a way that you can actually apply and reflect on? If this resonates with you, and you feel that this space is bringing value into your life, you can also support this channel through the thanks button just below the video, contributing with whatever feels right in your heart. Every gesture of support helps this message continue reaching those who are ready to hear it. Because at the end of the day, what is being shared here is not a technique. It is a perspective, a way of seeing your life not as random, but as interconnected. A way of understanding that every action, no matter how small, can become meaningful when it is aligned with awareness. And perhaps the most important realization of all is that what you are truly seeking is not contained in the coin, nor in the salt, but in the consciousness you bring to the moment when you hold them. And once this understanding begins to settle within you, something subtle starts to shift. Not outside, not immediately in visible circumstances, but within the way you perceive your own life. Because what the ancient teachings reveal is not a shortcut to change reality, but a transformation in how you participate in it. This is where the teaching becomes alive. Because knowledge, no matter how deep, remains distant until it becomes embodied. And in the Hebrew tradition, wisdom is never meant to stay in the mind. It is meant to descend into action, into daily life, into the quiet decisions that no one else sees. So how does this principle, this union of intention, value, and awareness translate into something real in your everyday existence? It begins with something very simple, yet profoundly difficult: becoming conscious. Not conscious in a vague or abstract way, but aware of how you relate to what you receive. Every coin that comes into your hand, every opportunity, every moment of increase, carries with it a question that is rarely spoken, but always present. What will you do with this? In Jewish wisdom, receiving is never passive, it is active. It demands alignment. It demands responsibility. The sages taught that blessing increases where it is directed with purpose, and diminishes where it is taken for granted. So the first practice is not about salt or objects. It is about awareness in receiving. Pause, even for a brief moment, when something enters your life. Recognize it. Acknowledge its source, not mechanically, but sincerely. This alone begins to reshape your relationship with abundance. The second practice is about preservation, just as salt preserves. What are you protecting in your life? Not in terms of fear, but in terms of value. Your time, your energy, your focus. These are forms of wealth that are often ignored, yet they determine everything else. If these are scattered, no external gain can compensate for that loss. The covenant of salt teaches that what is sacred must be guarded, not hidden in fear, but held with awareness. And then comes the third element: direction. Because a coin that is held but never directed becomes stagnant. And in Hebrew understanding, stagnation is the opposite of blessing. Flow must be maintained. Giving is not separate from receiving, is part of it. This is why the tradition places such emphasis on tzedakah, often translated as charity, but in truth, meaning justice, alignment, restoring balance. It is not about losing what you have. It is about ensuring that what flows through you continues to move in harmony. When these three elements, awareness, preservation, and direction, come together, something begins to align internally. And this is where even a symbolic act, like placing a coin in salt, can become meaningful, if it is approached correctly. Not as a ritual of expectation, but as a moment of reflection. You hold the coin, and you ask yourself, what does value mean in my life right now? You see the salt, and you ask, what am I choosing to preserve, to protect, to keep aligned with what is true? And then, quietly, without performance, without urgency, you allow that moment to become a reset, a realignment, a conscious decision to move differently. This is the application. Not dramatic, not visible to others, but deeply transformative over time. And here is something important to understand. Consistency matters more than intensity. A single moment of awareness is powerful, but a life built on repeated awareness becomes something else entirely. It becomes stable, grounded, aligned. Now, pause again, and write this in the comments. Not as a habit, but as a conscious declaration. I align my actions with what I am ready to receive. Because alignment is not about asking for more. It is about becoming capable of holding what is already on its way. And if you are someone who feels drawn to content like this, who resonates with ancient wisdom translated into something you can actually live, and you want to support this work so it can continue reaching others, there is also a material in the description that goes deeper into these hidden teachings. It brings valuable insights about Jewish secrets that are rarely explained in this way. And at the same time, it supports this channel so we can continue sharing here on YouTube. Because what is being built here is not just content. It is continuity. A bridge between what was written and how it is lived now. And perhaps, as you begin to apply even the smallest part of this, you will notice something unexpected. Not an immediate change in circumstances, but a change in perception. And from that perception, everything else begins to follow. There is a moment in every person's life when understanding is no longer enough. When knowledge must descend from the mind into the heart, and from the heart into the way one walks through the world. And it is often not in grand events, but in quiet, almost invisible moments, that this transformation begins. There is an old story, told among those who studied the deeper layers of wisdom, about a man who spent years chasing prosperity. He moved from place to place, searching for teachings, collecting methods, trying to understand why abundance seemed to pass by him as if he were invisible to it. One day, tired and frustrated, he found himself in a small village, where he met an elderly teacher. The man did not ask for long explanations. He simply said, "Tell me, when something good comes into your life, what do you feel first?" The man paused. He had never been asked that before. After a moment, he answered honestly, "I feel fear, that it will not last." The teacher nodded slowly, as if he had heard this answer many times before. "And when you hold something of value," the teacher continued, "do you feel responsible for it? Or do you feel the need to hold it tightly so it does not leave you?" The man lowered his gaze. "I hold it tightly." The teacher then took a small bowl, filled it with salt, and placed a single coin inside. He pushed it gently toward the man, and said something that would stay with him for the rest of his life. "You are not lacking abundance. You are lacking alignment with it." The man looked confused. He expected instructions, formulas, something he could do to change his situation immediately. But instead, he received silence. After a while, the teacher spoke again. "Salt preserves what is already good. But if what you hold is fear, it will preserve that too. The coin represents what flows into your life. But if you receive with fear, you distort the flow before it can become blessing." That day, nothing changed on the outside. The man left with the same resources, the same circumstances. But something within him had shifted. For the first time, he began to observe himself. He noticed how he reacted when opportunities appeared, how he doubted, how he anticipated loss even before receiving, how he disconnected himself from what was already present. And slowly, without force, without rituals of desperation, he began to change. He started to receive differently, to hold differently, to act with awareness instead of fear. And over time, what once seemed distant began to move closer. Not because he found a secret object, but because he became a different kind of vessel. This is where the teaching becomes real for you, because perhaps, in some way, you have also been searching, trying to understand why certain things feel blocked, delayed, or out of reach. And maybe, just maybe, the answer is not outside of you, but in how you are relating to what is already trying to reach you. So let me ask you something, and answer this not quickly, but honestly. When something good approaches your life, do you welcome it, or do you prepare yourself to lose it? When value enters your hands, do you honor it, or do you fear its departure? Take a moment and write this in the comments. From a place of truth, not perfection, I choose to receive without fear and to honor what flows into my life. Because this is where transformation begins. Not in the external gesture, but in the internal decision. And if what you heard here resonated with you, if you feel that something within you has shifted, even slightly, then understand that this path can go deeper. There is a material prepared for those who want to explore these teachings more fully. If you are enjoying this theme, we have an ebook, Prosperidade Judia Abundante, created to guide you through these principles with clarity and depth. To access it, the link is in the description of this video, or in the first pinned comment. It is not just information. It is a continuation of what you began to understand here. Because the wisdom you touched today is not new. It is ancient. It has been lived, preserved, and transmitted through generations, who understood that prosperity is not something you chase in the world. It is something you align within yourself. And now, you carry a part of that understanding, not in your hands, but in your awareness. So as you move forward from this moment, remember this. The coin was never the secret. The salt was never the source. The power was never in the object. It has always been, and will always be, in the intention you bring to what you do. And when intention aligns with awareness, and awareness aligns with truth, what once seemed distant begins to move toward you, naturally, quietly, and without force, because you are no longer trying to reach it. You are becoming ready to receive it.